Gaming Sales out here with another 3v3, and these results are kind of interesting. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Yeah, that's right. The Swallow's Cowrie is back. I mean, hey, tributing a Wing Beast from your hand or field to add a Wing Beast monster from your deck to your hand with the same levels as that tributed monster. Same levels. Technically, M-Pen and M-Pen is kind of a cute little option. We've seen it done before here, but this ended up being on the winning team. I'm glad to see Dark Simorg actually showing back up out here. Seeing only double Dimensional Fissure in this, and also no Thrust in the main deck. We're also playing double copies of Dreaming Time, and we're maximizing on the triple Featherstorm down here in the side. A lot different of options that I feel like I'm really used to seeing out here. I mean, the Thrust are packed in down here, and then of course your extra deck is just whatever flavor of resource that you think you're going to need out here to be able to close out the game. But this feels extremely optimized, and that's kind of what you're here for, is just, you know, the best optimized Yu-Gi-Oh! You can find. On the same team, we had Kashtira, sporting off double Dimensional Fissure in the main deck. Once again, I mean, I think Dimensional Fissure is an extremely strong card when it actually matters. You know, as long as you think you're going to run into Infinite Fire, well, then this is going to be good. Now, I mean, this was a 3v3 event, so things are going to be a little bit more spread out throughout the course of this. So that's something pretty major to consider. They also opted to play double Super Poly in the main. Interesting. You know, I've seen people be like, well, you know, maybe you should opt for the 3, but I don't know. I don't really feel like they needed it. And of course, one of my favorite tech choices of this format has been the deck lockdown. Neither player adding cards from deck to the hand except by drawing them, and cannot special summon from the main deck. Tell me more about not having to do a Flamberge Dragon and Friends. Card is really strong. And then of course, yield summon limits. We've learned quite a lot about the amazing power that this card brings to the meta. And our last member of this first place team here, I'm glad to see that we have some actual value on the voiceless voice side of the equation here, because, I mean, honestly, I think this deck does do a lot, but there's a little tech choice here that catches my attention, and it's Jowgen, because we are playing the branded stuff, which means you can technically Sanctifier out the Jowgen onto your field, and then your opponent just looks at this and goes, are you kidding me right now? Like, I have to actually handle a Jowgen? Why, yes, you do. Alright, it's actually pretty impressive to see that the branded stuff was able to find its home in a deck like this, to be able to do its thing. And hey, look, the best card that I was already telling you about is back present here. Good stuff. Also, you know, we have more summon limits back here. The fact they chose to main one summon limit and actually got away with it is pretty impressive. So those are the results for your winning team for this event. Next up here, we have our second place team. And here we go. This is where you kind of start to see, hey, you know, we're going to dial it back. We're going to go to more of the standardized sort of things here. And that's fine. Standard is workable in this meta. And, you know, double Sorrowfus is the thing. I mean, I do like the Odd Ice Pendulum Graph. I think it's cute. You don't really need it right now for the current edition of this TCG meta. You know what I mean? Like, you can make a chance and, you know, not play it. You have plenty of options available to you if you want to adjust without it, but I think the two of this has been fine. Man, this card is so good. We're also playing triple Valor. Honestly, Valor, Droll, the Ashes, your standard hand trap lineup is very strong. And hey, look, yet again, you see how many builds that we've looked at just in this video alone that are sporting off the crazy power that is summon limit. Like, yet again, I think we have a good Yu-Gi-Oh card on our hands. Next up, oh wow, we are just bumping on along here with the consistency. Now this build obviously opted to not play the Droll and Lockbirds, as you saw here. Instead, you know, we have Ghost Spell and the Haunted Mansion here. You take your poison with this format. You know, you've got to look at fire and you got to go, all right, what is going to be the most optimized hand traps that I can think of out here to be able to overcome these sorts of things? And unfortunately, you know, you've just got to make calls to decide which path line you're going to go down. I do find it interesting, though, that this build actually opted to play enemy controllers. I mean, the ability to take your opponent's monster is pretty solid, but a lot of the time, I feel like there's just, maybe not like the greatest value that this card has, and we're also only main decking 1 talents. Well, if you see it, you see it. Like, I guess that's the logic out of this. Gotta love power cards. When they come up, they come up. And, hello. I see, Airlifter and friends here. To be honest with you, I feel like we don't see a lot of Rescue Ace anymore. Ever since they lost this good card, well, it's been a consistency nightmare. Now, this build is actually playing the Snake Eyes Ash to be able to trigger into the Pobbler the way it looks, which I think this is fine. I mean, being able to dedicate a summon to the Ash to, trying to scout and see if your opponent's going to do something, and, you're like, okay, well, now we get the Pobbler off of this. Now we have 2 monsters on the field, which kind of turns your extra deck into more of a crazy resource for a deck like this. So that's actually kind of something to consider out here when you're looking at this deck is, maybe including this card actually will help up the consistency of your deck. That's what you want to hear, right? You want these decks to be maximized for the absolute consistency. So that's your second place team. Moving on into third place here. I had a feeling we were going to walk into fire down here. Now, this build is actually something completely different. They're actually citing Shadal App Cologne, and we're playing an Ariel, and we're playing a Shadal Dragon in here with the Shadal Fusions. I've heard rumors, and I've heard people talk about playing this package. This is pretty cool. And we're also seeing the Divine Temple here that we started to see being side decked, just kind of make fire, kind of convert on into an actual Snake Eyes deck. That Temple makes all the difference in these matchups, and if it can grind out just a little bit easier for these competitions, it's a good inclusion. Our teammate here, we have, of course, the power of Manadium. Manadium, it does not make those crazy boards that you want this to. I see we're playing 1 Ascension, the 1 Imaginings is pretty standard. Hello Talents, hello Thrust. You gotta love playing the absolute best cards that you can. And then, of course, the extra deck has not changed. Like, most of your resources that you're dedicating to this build are the same, but holy moly, man. This side deck, how many hand traps can you find? 10 hand traps, because the meta is that toxic. I also see we're playing a different dimension ground in here as well. Okay, and our last teammate here is sporting off Fire Kings with the Magician Souls. We've seen this kind of come up where you basically end up trying to use the Magician Souls to drop down a Dia Bellstar, and then you're able to use the Magician Souls as an extender in case they try to cut you off somewhere along the way. Having your Snake Eyes Ash, shut off with a Veiler or something out here, needing to get that extra monster on the field so you can actually continue to combo on up can be a little bit rough. Also, deck thinning is deck winning sometimes out here. So your third place team, a little bit more meta heavy, but that's fine. You've got to have some people when you play the competition. All right, our fourth place team here, this is a lot more standardized, actually. You have the cross-out designators in here because losing to any of these hand traps right here is very detrimental to this deck. We've all learned that Manadium needs the ability to get its oomph going. And I see that we're playing Bish Bulkin in here. I see that we're having a level of degeneracy that I quite did not want to deal with today, but you know what? As long as Bish Bulkin's around, I mean, you may as well continue to play all of these different builds to try to exploit just how broken that this card is, because that's just kind of what you're dealing with here. So this is by far probably one of the more interesting builds. And then our teammate here, sporting off the 12 Monster Bash for Rescue Ace. We have Soul Release, and then we have different Dimension Ground in here. They were really pushing for this style of, I guess, break a board for Fire. They're like, hey, the set 4 combo is the best thing we can have. They're also playing a Lightning Storm in here. They're putting a lot of value on Thrust, especially with these card choices here. And if anything happens to their board, like post-setup, I feel like they're just going to crumble apart. But I mean, to be fair, these cards are very strong, and we have learned that. And our last list on this team, hey, here you go, the 43 build. Sporting off triple talents. And hey, where's the thrust? No thrust in this build, actually. Don't need it. You do see the slow releases down here on the side, as per usual. Anti-scam fragrance. Did not notice a lot of anti-spell for this event, but I feel like that's fine. You know, having some sort of counterbalance to these sorts of events is pretty good. And of course, hello Poplar. You gotta love the one-ups that you can interact with off of the bonfire just for the slight consistency upgrades that these builds do tend to give you. Interesting. So what do you guys think about everything? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.